Now that you've been through the pre-learning, you sat through this session, I want to help you by reminding you of some things and introducing you to a couple new things that will help you receive feedback better. After you have a conversation, after something takes place where you have an encounter with somebody else and they've given you feedback, once you've calmed down, once you've got over all of those emotions, the first thing you can do is take responsibility for yourself and the way that you respond to feedback. Each of us are responsible for our own thoughts, feelings, actions, words, choices, beliefs. Sometimes the path to satisfying relationships is admitting we did something to undermine it. Helpful questions to discover your part. What is my part in the chaos in this relationship? What makes it hard for me to admit I offended someone else, or I did something wrong, or didn't live up to what my employers wanted from me? What strategies do I use to avoid responsibilities? Think about that for a second. We all do it. All of us have our own unique strategies to avoid responsibility. As you're looking back, as you're evaluating yourself, ask yourself that question. What negative things happen when I become defensive? Don't miss this one, because if you don't think about what it is that you do that makes your own success not accessible to you, you have to take the time. The last one is, what is one thing I can do differently today? Instead of just blowing it off, instead of not giving it consideration, ask yourself a simple question. Is there one thing I could do? Because it might just be simple. I want to talk a little bit more about that. The second thing that you can do is make the necessary adjustments. Sometimes criticism is valid. I know we have to stop for a second. Our normal identity protects ourselves from hearing anything. But what if there's truth to it? What if there's not a whole bunch of truth, but what if there's just a slight amount of truth? What if it has some validity to it? And what if there are appropriate changes that I need to make? Begin the process of doing things differently. Make things right by making amends for doing what is needed to be corrected. If you've done something that isn't in your own best interest, doesn't help you, and it hasn't helped the company, change. The longer you take to own it and begin repairing, the more difficult it will be for you to repair the connection. This is the hardest part. When we've done something wrong, it's almost impossible to get ourselves to admit it. But the longer you take to admit it, the worse it's going to be for everyone. If you admit it the same day, it's easier to move on. If you take a week or a month or a year, it is almost impossible. So what I'm suggesting to you is to admit it sooner rather than later. You're going to experience pain either way. But a day of pain is not anywhere near as damaging as a week or a month or a year. If your actions need changing, then you need to change the way that you do things. It doesn't mean that you're an awful person. It doesn't mean you do everything entirely wrong. What it means is there's one thing that you need to change.